Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Parenting the Peaceful Way, Understanding Your Teen from the Inside Out. So it's been a little bit since I posted a video, but I think this is going to be a good one for you today. And if you have any questions about any of the videos or you're looking to get some parent coaching, just reach out to me and I'll put the link below and in the video below. Just reach out to www.parentingthepeacefulway.com and set up a free consultation and see if I would be a good fit for you as a parent coach. So today's conversation is going to be, I think, going to be interesting. So the question I have for you is, what's your parenting style? How do you parent? Think about it for a minute. So we all tend to learn how to be parents through watching our own parents, having our own parents, and seeing how they parent us. And we have to kind of take a step back and think, is my style, is it helping? Is it supporting my children? Is it helping my children to think critically, to make good decisions, to be kind, to honor the family's values, to accept responsibilities? And so if your answer to that is no, it doesn't seem to be very effective, there are ways that you can change to something that's more effective. But for today's video, I just want to talk to you a little bit and describe some of the different parenting styles and take a listen and see where you are with your parenting style, because we have to understanding that number one, parents parent their children differently. There's four main different styles of parenting, and not every child responds to certain parenting styles, and that might be where the conflict is. So when we look at parenting styles, we look at two different contrasting areas. One is responsiveness versus demandingness. Okay, so if you have a high level of responsiveness in your parenting style, it's your ability to foster individuality, self-regulation, self-assertion by being attuned, supportive, and acquiescent to children's need and doing so intentionally. And when we talk about demanding, we're talking about a parent's power over their children, to make children become integrated into the family whole by their maturity demands, supervision, disciplinary efforts, and willingness to confront the child who disobeys. Now, we have to talk about the fact that these are a continuum. So you have responsiveness, where you're responding all the time, to demandingness, where you are demanding all the time, and everything in between. Okay, so it's like a pendulum swinging back and forth. So there has to be a balance between those two. If you're too demanding, and you'll see with the parenting styles, if you're too demanding, your children are going to respond in a different way. And if you're too responsive, if you're too willing to give into your to give everything that your children wants, not necessarily what they need, there's problems there as well. Now, the other one is flexibility versus inflexibility. So to be flexible, that's your ability to remain engaged with your teenager, especially when working through chaos. Okay. How many times when there are issues in your family and it just seems like chaos, are you flexible enough to work through that, not to avoid it, but to work through it? It involves letting go of those self-critical thoughts, the comparisons, the judgments, and the rigid rules. Okay. Then the inflexibility, the unwillingness to let go of rigid rules and demands. It's power over parenting. And so, to explain that a little bit further, we have to be willing. We have choices. Everyone has choices, and you're either willing to make the choice to change, or you're going to be unwilling to make the choice to change. When you're willing, you're able to take in feedback, to do self-reflection, and to decide, you know what, I do need to make a change here. When you're unwilling, it's my rules, my house, my rules. You obey, you do what I say. You power over. And we're going to take a look at the responses from children when there's power over parenting. So think about that a little bit. Now, the first type of parenting style we're going to talk about is authoritarian parenting. So, if you remember the pendulum, let me try that again. Sometimes words are hard for me, especially on a Friday. Responsiveness and demandingness. So responsiveness and demandingness. So for an authoritarian parent, it's a high demand, low responsiveness. So it's hostile control or the use of punishment to obtain compliance and obedience. Okay. The unwillingness to explain rules and boundaries to your children, the unwillingness to hear your teen's opinion and obtain input. Rules must always be adhered to, and the teen must behave in the way that the parent demands. Inability to use empathy or compassion, inability to be affectionate, and very critical of your teen. Take a step back, and I want you to reflect honestly about your style. And this is not to make you feel bad. It's not a judgment on you. It's helping you to reflect and decide whether or not you need to make a change in how you parent so that you have better connection. Remember, it's all about connection. And when your teen feels connected to you, your teen is more likely to respond to you in a positive way. All right, so keep that in thought, in your mind. So what happens between authoritarian parenting and teenagers? Okay. So when teens are expected to accept parental judgment without questioning, what do you think happens to the teen's self-esteem? Okay. So if you're a parent that is always hypercritical of everything about your teenager, how they dress, how they look, what they eat, their grades, all of those, when you're hyper critical of your teen, how do you think their self-esteem will go? Teens are expected to accept all values and goals of the parents without any input. So what that means is you're pretty much working to create a mini you, so to speak. A child who has the same opinions, thoughts, feelings, desires, career goals as you do. Are you raising an individual, or are you raising someone to be exactly like you? Think about that. Authoritarian parenting style limits the teen's ability for problem solving because you're not allowing them to do so, making judgments on their own, and decision making. So we always, when we're upset at our teens, we tend to think, why can't they make smart decisions? Well, if you're making all of the decisions for them without any input from them, they're not going to be able to make any decisions or smart decisions or critical thinking or problem solving on their own, because you're doing it for them. You're telling them what to think, what to do, how to manage situations, how to get out of sticky situations. There's no ability. You're not allowing that part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, where executive functioning lives, to develop when you do that. Authoritarian parenting lowers self-esteem and self-efficacy. Kids don't want to do things for themselves because as a parent, you might get angry at them if they're doing something that, if they're cleaning their bedrooms the way, but not doing it the way that you want them to, and you get fed up and frustrated and you clean it up for them. What do you think they're learning? Teens who have authoritarian parents tend to have more mental health struggles, such as depression and anxiety and internalizing behaviors. These internalizing behaviors may be suicidal ideation or self-harm. They become emotionally withdrawn. They tend to be rebellious against all authority. So you will see a lot of behavioral and conduct problems, because when you don't have a chance to be in control of making decisions for yourself, you're going to rebel because you want that control. And then there's high risk for these kids for substance abuse. So that's the authoritarian parenting. The second parenting style is permissive parenting, or sometimes lenient parenting, or indulgent parenting. And so this is the complete opposite of authoritarian parenting. There's low demand, but there's high responsiveness. Okay. And some might think, oh, well, that's not too bad. Listen closely. There's very few rules or boundaries in the household. And believe it or not, most of our teens thrive on having boundaries set and expectations set. When they're not there, that can also cause a problem. There's lack of enforcing of these rules or boundaries, or whatever rules or boundaries might be present. These parents don't want to say no because they're afraid of disappointing their children. And then you have children growing up who come to me, who parents will bring their kids to me for therapy saying, my kid just doesn't understand the word no. Well, could it be because you've been very permissive before, and then all of a sudden you say no? Okay. Children are unable to follow rules, and this will carry over into the school setting. Children have little self-control. Children will possess egocentric tendencies. It's all about me. It's what I want. It's not what you want. And they struggle with relationships and social interactions because we're not helping them to build empathy and compassion for others. Because when they're getting everything they want, not whether it's everything they need, but everything they want, what do you think that you're teaching them? And so Neglectful parenting is low demandingness, low responsiveness. Okay, so both ends of the spectrum are all the way down here. Okay, these are uninvolved parents or disengaged parenting. They don't set firm boundaries or high standards. They're indifferent to their children's needs. They're uninvolved with their children's lives. These parents may struggle with their own mental health problems, and this is important. And they have experienced abuse or neglect in their own childhood. So, this is the generational trauma that gets passed down when you have neglectful parenting who haven't shown you what it means or looks like to be neglectful, to be responsive to your children's needs, when you have your own mental health issues because your parents have struggled with their own mental health issues. It gets passed down. Okay, and we want to be able to break that cycle. Children tend to be more impulsive in this situation. They struggle with their own emotional self-regulation. Children, especially teens, will be more delinquent, have more conduct and substance abuse problems. And then teens will experience more mental health problems themselves and are at a higher risk for suicide. So when there's been trauma in the household, when parents are neglectful or disengaged because of their own mental health struggles or substance abuse struggles, we have teens that are more suicidal. They self-harm more. There are connection and attachment issues, so you will see more depression, more anxiety, some conduct disorders. You will also tend to see more diagnoses of borderline personality disorders in these teenagers when they become adults. So keep that in mind. So with that being said, there is a style that's effective. Okay. And so we've had high demand, low responsiveness. It's unbalanced. Okay. Then we have high responsiveness and low demand, not balanced. We have no demand, no responsiveness, so it's negatively impacted. So the next one, of course, will be high responsiveness and high demand. It's positively balanced. So we have negatively balanced down here and positively balanced up here. And that style is called authoritative parenting, not to be confused with authoritarian. Another word would be democratic parenting. So these parents will have high demands, high expectations, and high responsiveness for their kids. They have high expectations for achievement and maturity. They're warm and they're responsive. There's empathy and compassion. And when you as a parent can display empathy and compassion and warmth and responsiveness, you also teach your children that. Teenagers learn to be able to do that. You're developing that part of the brain with emotional regulation and executive functioning. Okay, that's what parenting styles help to do. They develop that part of the brain. There are rules and boundaries that are set. They're enforced through the use of open discussions, guidance, and reasoning. And so it's not always required to punish a teenager or to withdraw privileges. Because if you can sit down and have an open discussion about the behaviors and the expectations, and you provide guidance and reasoning throughout there, that's a much better lesson for the teenager than taking privileges away. Okay, because the teen is able to have some input. The teen is able to ask questions for clarification, and you are specifically stating what the expectations are. Sometimes parents will punish their teens by taking the cell phone away without explaining that to them why they're doing it and without letting them correct the error in judgment or the error in behavior or the error of choice of behavior. You have to set your kids up for success. And the best way to help them to learn, okay, because we have to make the decision. Are we going to punish behaviors? Are we going to punish these mistakes? Or are we going to allow our kids to learn the importance of the boundaries, the expectations? Okay. Which do you think is probably going to be more successful? Because when you keep punishing, you only build resentment. We want kids to learn. We want to develop that executive functioning, that emotional regulation part of their brain. So these parents are highly flexible. They're willing to listen. They're willing to take in input, and they are willing to change how they react. They might be willing to say, you know what, you're right. This rule doesn't seem fair to you, and you're older now and you're showing more responsibility. So let's change this. Okay. They provide explanations to their teens in regard to what the rules are, why, and boundaries are, why they're in place, because this will allow your teen more awareness, and it teaches things like values, morals, and goals. Discipline is outcome oriented, all right, as opposed to being coercive. So when you punish, or sometimes when you make promises, if you clean up your room, you'll get to go here. If you clean up your room, you'll get dessert, whatever. That tends to be more coercive. Now, this might be hard for some to understand, especially if you're working with a behavioralist who has reward systems and things like that. Reward systems work until they no longer work. Okay. And when you're using the reward system, what is the child actually learning? Are they learning the value of what they need to do? Are they learning that in a family they all contribute to clean the house by cleaning up and keeping their own rooms neat? Or are they learning to get the reward? What is it that you want your child to learn? What is it that you want your teen to learn? So with discipline, it's outcome oriented. Okay. There's a goal of changing behaviors because your teenager understands why this is important. Okay. These parents are affectionate and supportive. There's empathy and compassion, respectful of their teens' autonomy. So an example is something like many parents will tell me that their teens aren't responsible enough, or their teens don't show any level of responsibility, so they don't allow them to have it. So if you want to teach your teen responsibility, or how to be responsible, or to take leadership in performing tasks around the house, you have to give them opportunities to do so. All right, does that make sense? Okay, if you want your teen to come home after school every day You've got to give them the opportunity, number one, to do so. And if they do come home later than they said, how how do you teach them? Do you punish them automatically? Do you take privileges away? Or do you have a talk with them? Because sometimes behaviors can be changed by just sitting down and having an open discussion. You know, when you're late like that, I start to worry about you. I start to think that something might have happened to you, and all kinds of thoughts go through my head. And this is why I would like you to be home by this time. Okay? Explaining. There is nothing wrong with explaining expectations, rules, and boundaries to your children. Okay? If they're asking why should I be doing this? Don't look at it as a challenge to your authority. Look at it as my child simply wants to know, and answer the question. And the more information that you give them, the better. These parents allow freedom and independence. They're teaching independence in their kids, and there is bi-directional communication, right? Your children are more likely to come to you with problems, okay, or to be open and honest with you about what they're feeling if you take the judgment out of it, if you continue to hold them with positive thoughts and with unconditional love, okay, they're more likely to come to you and talk to you about all those tough things that teenagers go through. So these children who have Democratic parents, they feel cherished, they're happier and more content, they're more independent, they make better decisions, they're more active, they're not sitting in front of the TV screen, the video game, or constantly on their phone. They have higher academic achievements, they have better self-esteem, good social skills and interactions, better mental health. They're less likely to be depressed, have anxiety, be suicidal, have conduct problems, or engage in substance abuse. They exhibit less violent tendencies. They feel securely attached or connected. And when a child feels more connected, they're more responsive to what you need them to do. They're more responsive to their expectations. And the parent and child relationship is strong. And that tends to be the goal that most parents want in their family. When you have that style of parenting, you go a long way to really decrease the chaos, the arguments, the conflicts. Are you going to agree with everything that your teen, says or makes, or the decisions going to be decisions that you would necessarily make? No. And that's okay, because you're raising individuals, unique individuals, and you have to allow them the ability to grow, to make those mistakes, and have the opportunity to correct them. And so it's all about that connection, that finding that middle path when there is conflict. And the way to get to that middle path is to have honest, open conversations and that help build connection with your kids. So those are the 4 parenting styles. Where do you fit in? And if you're not where you want to be, Are you willing to make the changes? Are you willing to learn how to make the changes that you need so that you can get to where you need to be? If so, go to the link below this video to www.parentingthepeacefulway.com and schedule your free consultation, your free discovery call, and see if parent coaching is the way to go for you. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.